Have you given up on church? Or maybe you've grown weary of where you've been attending. Maybe you've been happy with your church, but you notice some people have left and you're not sure why. Or maybe you know why. Maybe they were mistreated. Maybe it's time for each one of us to re-examine our own church situation. Today is part 2 of our discussion of Remnant Radio's episode on how to heal and find a healthy church.
Welcome to the Jesus People Sisterhood podcast, a place created just for you, the single Christian woman over 50 who knows there is still so much more ahead. I'm your host, Janine Jordan, Christian confidence coach and leadership mentor based in Alberta, Canada.
And I'm your co-host, Ellie McCormick, a flag certified coach, Christian longevity coach, and life coach in the United States. And if you've ever felt a little overlooked, a little forgotten, or quietly wondered, God, what does the rest of my life look like from here? We understand because we've been there too. We know what it's like to carry dreams that haven't fully unfolded yet, to navigate the unique challenges of singlehood, and to wrestle with questions about purpose, health, and the future. And honestly, we couldn't find a space online that truly spoke to us, so we created one.
This is Jesus People Sisterhood, a place where you are not invisible, you are valuable. Where you are not past your prime, you are stepping into one of the most powerful, meaningful seasons of your life.
Here you'll find real conversations, deep encouragement, and a circle of women who love Jesus and are walking this road right alongside you. Because you carry wisdom, you carry strength, and your life still holds incredible purpose.
So join us as we talk about what really matters. Building meaningful relationships, strengthening your health, and growing deeper in your walk with God. And we share tons of valuable information relevant to our sisterhood. We'll share stories, explore life-giving ideas, hear inspiring voices, and yes, have a few laughs along the way. So wherever you're listening from, whether you're in your kitchen or on a walk or sitting in that quiet place, just know you belong here. And let's walk this journey together. Ladies, let's talk about our private Facebook group for senior housing and co-living. Finding the right living situation later in life can feel overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be a solo journey. That's why we created a private group just for this, a supportive community where single Christian women, 50 plus, can explore house sharing and co-living options together. What's it for? This group is a place to post your housing needs and wants, whether you're looking for a housemate, hoping to share a home, searching for a room to rent, considering a tiny house, or exploring some other living arrangement that fits your season of life. It's also where landlords and renters can connect directly. Why join? If you've ever wished you could find housemates who actually share your values and faith, this is the place. You'll be connecting with other single Christian women over 50 who understand exactly what you're looking for: companionship, safety, affordability, and a home that feels right.
And you don't have to be a single Christian woman over 50 to join this group. If you have a room, home, apartment, or rental property available for a JPS sister, you're welcome here too. Singles, couples, and organizations with housing to offer are all invited to be part of this community. And here's the truth. A group like this simply can't succeed without a critical mass of people. The more members we have, both women looking for housing and those with rooms or rentals to offer, the more likely it is that real connections and matches happen. Right now, we don't have enough people in the group, and that makes it hard for members to find what they're looking for. Growing this group isn't optional. It's essential to it working at all. So here's what we're asking. If you're looking for housing, join us. If you know someone with a room, home, or rental property to offer, invite them too. And if this group could bless someone in your life, please share it with them. The link to our private JPS Senior Housing Facebook group can be found in the show notes.
Hi, Ellie. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing okay. How's it going with you?
Things are going well. What's on your mind? What do you want to share today?
What's been on my mind is a few days ago, I had a dream that I actually remembered. Sometimes
Oh,
that happens. I'm in REM sleep when you're dreaming. I wake up, it's near wake up time in the morning. And so I actually remember the dream because I go long, long periods. I'm sure I probably dreamed, but I don't remember what it is. Does that happen with you? Do you remember your
yeah,
dreams?
occasionally, but not for a long time. No, and that happens, like you said, during rapid eye movement, like when you're
Yeah.
sleeping, right? Okay, awesome. Yeah, tell us,
Yeah, so
what is?
it was so weird. And this is usually why you remember it, or I feel like is the Lord trying to tell you something? So I had this dream, and in it, they're usually very short because it's kind of like I'm going in and out of consciousness. Like I know it's
Okay,
morning and it's time to get up, but then this dream is still happening that I'm
yeah,
remembering. So I'm on this bus. It's weird how you kind of know in the dream some kind of backstory. You don't know why. So I'm on this bus, and I guess that I'm on this bus with like four people that I know, and
okay.
I'm understanding that it's taking us from the airport into the city in Spain. And
Oh,
so my background is when I was in college, I studied abroad in Spain. It's time, I guess the person that is actually my traveling companion gets off the bus. It was like our stop or something. And she's waiting for me out there, and I'm scrambling to get my luggage. I go to the back of the bus, and there's this old garment bag that I remember having years and years ago. I'm moving stuff around trying to grab all this luggage. And
right.
my friend that I'm traveling with is standing out there, and then the bus, it's taken me so long that the bus starts to drive away. And she's out there, and I'm like, oh no. And I yelled to her, I'll call you. And she makes these body language like, I don't have a phone.
Oh no.
And she couldn't get back on the bus because it was pulling away, and she was there waiting with her luggage. And I'm like,
Right,
oh my goodness. So at one point, I'm thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to get in touch with her? She doesn't have a phone. How are we going to connect? Also, where am I going? What's going to happen? Well,
right.
there's these three other women where I feel like one of them I know. They're moving on to go somewhere else. So I turn to one of them and I say, well, what hotel are you going to stay at?
Mm.
Thinking maybe I can just stay with them, so I'm not alone here. And immediately, I don't know that they answered. I just thought, oh, they're probably going to stay in some place really expensive that I can't afford. So, at any rate, they're moving on. And so I go back to trying to collect all these luggage, like wading through stuff. I'm finding this old backpack that belonged to my son, this old Thomas the Tank Engine backpack. And I open it and it's got toys in it. I'm thinking, what is this? I'm trying to consolidate it and all stick it in the big suitcase. This is not me. If I was going on a big trip, it's like I didn't prepare at all. I just grabbed a bunch of stuff that I don't even use, that's old, and somehow I put it on the plane and it got all the way here. It's like, this is not me. I would have prepared for this. It was really bothering, and now it was costing me. I had now been separated from the person I was supposed to be traveling with. I didn't know where I was going or what was going to happen to me, where I was going to stay or anything.
Yeah.
And somewhere in my mind, there was this idea that I guess I was still in my 20s. So the friend that had gotten off the bus was actually somebody I was close friends with in Spain that
Oh,
was a fellow student. She was in her 20s, which is the age I was. So it's like going back 40 years or something.
wow.
Somehow we were back there and we were going to go study again. I don't
Oh,
know.
okay.
And anyway, then it moved to some restaurant that was going out of business in Spain that these people were going to work out. That's not as important. And then I woke up. But to me, the franticness of I missed the stop because I
Yeah.
wasn't prepared, because I was carrying all this baggage.
Mm.
And this is like not me. And I'm like, Lord, what were you trying to tell me? Were you telling me, one, that I'm not prepared for wherever you're sending me?
Hmm.
And two, I'm carrying all this needless baggage. Thought, wow, okay, so I've been praying about it because, okay, even if that's his message to me, what do I do about it? And then I started thinking about how much in scripture I know people, and this is probably true. Somebody has a dream and they may have a nightmare or a dream where they're upsets them or whatever, and it's because they ate too much pepperoni pizza or something. I'm sure
Okay.
it's true, right?
Yeah. Mm.
But you can't dismiss all dreams because we see in scripture over and over again that God communicated to people through dreams.
Right.
He told Joseph in Genesis he was going to be a leader and his family was going to bow down to him. He had Joseph interpret the baker and the cupbearer and the Pharaoh's dreams. And then you had Daniel interpreting Nebuchadnezzar's dreams. And then in the New Testament, Joseph, the earthly father of Jesus, was told to marry Mary and he
Right.
was warned to go to Egypt.
Mhm.
God communicates in dreams, and I
Mm.
think it would be unbiblical to say he doesn't.
Right.
But
Mm.
I just thought, probably for a lot of women,
Mm.
it's older women, how much baggage are we carrying? That
Mm.
this
Mhm.
old baggage that we need to have let go of, and it's
Mhm.
hindering us. We're
Right.
missing out because we're carrying this stuff and we're not preparing for what lies ahead.
Wow. Yeah. Well, dreams, like you said, definitely can teach us things, and if they're from the Lord, for sure. And I think that's a great reminder. That's a great reminder for everyone, Ellie, because regardless of whether we have had a dream like that or we've had something happen like that, we definitely all carry a little bit of baggage, I think. And the older I get, the more I see how much that happens. Something will happen and I will drag up an old memory or an old hurt or an old pain, and or something will remind me of something that happened a long time ago. We do. We need to deal with those things to be prepared to move on. And what a great reminder. And you told that so well. I was just enthralled with what was going to happen.
Well, one of the positives was
Hmm.
the woman that got off the bus that I was supposedly traveling with had been
Yeah.
somebody that I actually studied abroad in Spain with, and we got to be really, really close.
Yeah.
And then years later, after we got back to the States, we had a big falling out. It was actually very painful because I felt really, really betrayed by this person, and they
Hmm.
really tried to hurt me. But in this dream, and again, this is like 40 years ago, I haven't had any contact with them. In the dream, we were friends again
Oh.
and we were traveling together. And I thought, that's really sweet. That was
Hmm.
really sweet. And I hope that wherever she is, maybe she's,
Hmm.
in a relationship with the Lord. I don't know if she is. I'll see her again in heaven, I hope.
Yeah, those moments have happened sometimes in our lives, and we're able to reconcile either in our hearts or in person. They're so special, and to be able to see brothers and sisters on the other side and have relationship with them again is
Yeah.
just one of
Oh,
the
the
prom
thought that
yeah.
maybe in this life there was a lot of hurt, but maybe when we get to the other side, that's all
Mhm.
going to be healed.
Right. Yeah, just another thing to look forward to, right? We know that if we hold on to our faith and we are do our best, I think the Lord knows that. He knows what we're needing, and sometimes He gives us things that we didn't even know. They're unexpected a
Yeah.
little bit.
And it helped me because I haven't really thought about this person
Hmm.
much. But
Yeah.
I'm sure if I thought about them, I certainly afterwards, probably about 30 years ago, I didn't want to think about them because it was very hurtful and they weren't not very nice. But now, after this dream and being reminded of this person, it's like when I think of them, I have a smile on my face. And
Right.
that's really wonderful.
Mhm.
Okay,
Well,
well, move
let's
on
get
to
to the
the
episode.
episode.
Welcome, sisters, to this episode of the Jesus People Sisterhood podcast, the only podcast specifically for single Christian women over 50. Today, we give a shout out to our sisters in Ireland. Thank you for listening. We want everyone to get to know our listeners, and so we'll be doing listener spotlight episodes from time to time. If you'd like to share your testimony or what the Lord is doing in your life currently, or if you are leading in ministry or another field and would like to tell us about that for a Jesus Sister Excelling in the Last Third episode, please contact us at support@jesuspeoplesisterhood.com. We would love to have our listeners come and share with the sisterhood. And now, let's get to today's episode.
Today, we're continuing our discussion on finding a healthy church. If you have not listened to part one, please go back and listen to the previous episode first. And now we pick up the conversation where we left off last week.
Well, many are recovering from having terrible experiences in the church. Recently, there are so many corrupt leaders being exposed, which we bantered back and forth here about. You may start to feel like Elijah, but the leaders that are being exposed because people are speaking out are numerous now, and so there are still righteous brethren out there or people out there who are saying, "Hey, this is not a good thing." Like yourself, Ellie, that just going to a church and something just happens to be presented, and there you are. You're taking the initiative, writing. You did something about it, and though it may not have been exactly the answer you wanted, you said something, and I think that that's really great that people are doing that. Of course, we're not to forsake the assembling of ourselves together, and that's found even in Hebrews 10:25. And we are to make sure that we can, to the best of our ability, find that church where we feel safe and secure and where people are doing the things that they need to be doing if they're in leadership. So, what do you do with the disconnect between what your head says and what you feel? Josh, in the episode, says go to a counselor. And beyond that, a good counselor will encourage you to take steps to get back into community and taking those steps over time before becoming a member of a church. And because counseling alone isn't enough to conquer your fear, you need to take actual steps to face that fear.
I just want to mention Diane Langberg. I don't know if our listeners are familiar with her and her work with abuse victims, but Diane Langberg has been for decades working with victims in the church, mostly sexual abuse. And I
Mm,
remember her as a young woman, she talked about how she started counseling these different people, injured women, and they started telling her, "Oh, yeah, I was going to counseling with my pastor, and after a while, in one session, he asked me to take off my shirt." And then Diane, of course, as she's counseling these women over time, she is finding out just how
mhm,
corrupt and immoral and all these terrible things that
right.
happen within the church and all these victims that are out there. I think it's important for us to realize a lot of times there's so many of us that live in denial.
Mm,
And the other thing I want to point out, so any of our listeners that are thinking, this doesn't happen and these terrible people are accusers of the brethren exposing this stuff. In Ephesians, it tells us not to be partakers of that, but even to expose these works of darkness.
right.
That is what we're supposed to do. And in that Hebrews 10:25, if you read the verses after that, it talks about people who are sinning and doing these terrible things and trampling the Son of
Mhm,
God. So we should do that. But I also wanted to point out that where there's a system where people can attain a power
mm,
and fame and money, it's going to attract predators. It's like where child molesters go to. They want to get a job working with kids,
mhm,
right? That's what they want to do. And it's the same thing that predators are going to go to places where they can find prey and where they are enabled to do it, where they're not accountable, where nobody's going to do anything. Unfortunately, the church system is that kind of place. And I think also there are probably people who start out with good intentions, but that power corrupts them.
mhm,
So there's probably both kinds. There's people who were evil from the beginning and rise to some position in the church, and then there are those who started out maybe with the right intentions, but all the power and the awe and the fame and the money corrupted them.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that that's true, and that can be for many kinds of institutions. We look at government, we look at big business, we look at lots of things. That's right. Wherever there are people, and power and money, it's a good place for corruption, for sure. So, in the Remnant Radio episode, Josh gives us practical steps to find a healthy church and what's right for you and your family. So, what do we look for in a healthy church? Know that healthy churches formed in the first century and they stayed strong or fell apart due to the sustained integrity of their members or the compromise of that integrity. So, the following are baseline for considering a church. And we give that reminder again that there are no perfect churches. Half of this list is structural, and the other half is cultural. A church it can check all those boxes and still have a culture of cover up, or could have a good culture but not have those doctrines in place to govern the church. Remnant Radio pulled from two books to create this list, and they are Nine Marks of a Healthy Church by Mark Devers for doctrinal structure, and Bully Pulpit Confronting the Problem of Spiritual Abuse in the Church by Michael Kruger for cultural issues.
Josh said in the episode that he didn't want to go over all 9 marks, so he only chose 6 of the 9 marks in Mark Deaver's book. The author, Mark Devers, said that he chose 9 particular marks, but that they were not the only marks. Those
Mm.
were just the ones he chose to write about. So I guess Josh kind of just chose 6 that he thought were important. As an aside, I did start to read the latest edition of the 9 Marks of a Healthy Church, but I'm really not a fan of Mark Devers, and I just could not get through it.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you right there. So,
Okay.
why are you not a fan of Mark Devers?
Well, I can't tell you I know anything like he was a pastor in my hometown of DC. So I didn't initially have anything against him, but when I started to actually listen to the book, I was listening to the audiobook,
Right.
and this was its latest edition. And by the time I got to the second foreword or introduction to the book, the guy just kept bragging about himself. So that was a real turnoff. I mean, already that was like a turnoff. And I think I did start listening to the first Mark. I just felt like what Mark Devers, how he gives a description of the first Mark is not exactly how Josh Lewis would describe it.
Okay.
So I think at that point I was just so turned off by it. I don't disagree necessarily with the actual marks of a healthy church, but maybe I wouldn't agree with Mark Deaver's definitions of those marks.
Hmm.
But I didn't have a problem with how Josh Lewis described them, so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. All right.
So the first one, the first mark is expository preaching. Josh Lewis said that his reason for saying this was a mark of a healthy church was a good mark was that it would be harder for a pastor then to promote himself or his agenda if he was tied to preaching through a book, preaching through a series of text, because he couldn't just pick and choose any old topic and preach on that to get people to do what he wanted. Some truth to that, and I do like expository preaching, but people can do whatever they want.
Mhm.
You can twist anything. People twist scripture all the time. The other thing that Josh said is that they could just, if they were expository preaching, they couldn't just skip over to things. And I'm like, yes, they do. I have gone to many churches where they had expository preaching, and believe me, they'll just read through a text and they might focus on a few things that they care about, and
Mhm.
they read and then they don't talk about the things that they don't want to talk about. It doesn't really hold them to anything, but this is what Josh said in his reasoning,
Mhm.
and I don't disagree with expository preaching.
Right.
Number 2 was biblical theology. I'm not going to elaborate on that. Obviously, you want to have biblical theology, and there are some churches where it's just like, ooh, somebody prophesies and they could say anything,
Mhm.
and it's not scriptural,
Right.
and they run their church any old way they want, whatever the prophet says, kind of thing. Number
Right.
3 is
Okay.
church membership is clearly defined. I did go to church, one of my favorite churches, one of the best experiences I had, and they did not have formal membership. So I'm saying any of these, they're good marks, but this is not hard and fast rules.
Right.
So church membership is clearly defined. I found, I'm not really sure Josh's reasoning behind that, except I guess to not to leave things like you don't really know where any boundaries are or how anything
Mhm.
works, I'm
Right.
guessing. But church membership can also, when they have all these kind of clearly defined rules, and it can be used against you. Or if you don't feel comfortable with it, then you're always excluded. That's just my thought. Number four is biblical church discipline. Here, Josh talks about having transparent processes. Most churches don't do any discipline unless it's like anybody who comes forward and says they've somebody's done something wrong to them and they discipline the victims. Number five is a discipleship culture. He's saying, and I think this is really good. You distribute maturity. Is that how your church operates, where they're discipling people, growing people? Or does one person sit high above everybody else and they're all his followers? You're just getting people to follow and do stuff, and it's not really discipling anybody. Six is biblical leadership, and you want to ask, is there a plurality of elders? So the pastor needs accountability. If something comes up, okay, is there a court of appeals? Is there
Mhm.
somebody you can go up higher to if things are not resolved at the church level?
Yeah. Okay, so the other thing that was talked about on that episode was the cultural side of things. And culture is extremely powerful, as we know. A good doctrinal structure still needs good culture. In Bully Pulpit, Kruger asks not just what a church believes, but how does a church behave? And that distinction really matters. And there were six things that were discussed. Number one, character over charisma. Biblical qualities of a leader is based on character, not giftings. From the very beginning of Jesus People Sisterhood, Ellie and I have prayed and searched for ways to help our sisters not just survive, but truly prosper in this last third of life. And we know the numbers are sobering. 1 in 5 single women over 65 will live at or below the poverty line. If that's you, or you're watching that possibility creep closer, we want you to know we see you. And this isn't a side issue to us, it's close to our hearts. One practical step some of our sisters have taken is shared housing, pooling resources, splitting expenses, and gaining the blessing of built in community along the way. If you have a spare room, that's part of why we started the JPS Senior Housing Facebook group to help connect sisters who could bless each other this way. We've also been asking the Lord for wisdom around finances, real, workable strategies for women in our season of life. And as He brings us ideas, we want to keep bringing them to you. Today, we want to share one that meant a lot to us personally.
I never want to stop learning. And one of the ways I keep growing my financial knowledge is by listening to people like Toby Mathis. A lot of what he teaches is aimed at younger people who still have decades to save and invest. And if you're like me, that can feel pretty discouraging because we can't go back to 30 and start over. But one thing Toby says over and over has stuck with me. Owning a business is one of the most reliable paths to financial security at any age. That's why I want to tell you about something that changed things for me. In 2020, I was unsure and a little afraid and wondering if it was too late to build something of my own. I joined the Virtual Savvy community and took their VA course. And it gave me both the practical tools like branding and learning apps like Canva and the confidence to actually launch my coaching practice in 2021. I wouldn't be doing what I do today without that first step. Virtual Savvy's program, the Savvy System Accelerator, walks you through starting a profitable at home business step by step over 90 days. I want to be honest with you, of course, no course can promise you a certain outcome. And this isn't a magic fix. But I can tell you why I think it's worth considering for women in our stage of life. The startup costs are low. You work from home on your own schedule. You're not thrown in to figure it out alone. There's a real community, there's weekly coaching, and you're encouraged to pair with an accountability partner in the community. And Abby Ashley, who created it, is a delightful and genuine young woman and a sister in the Lord. If you've been feeling stuck or like the door is closed on building something new for yourself, I want to gently push you on that thought. It hasn't closed. If this program feels like it might be a fit, there's a link in the show notes for instant access and a free training as well if you just want to dip a toe in and see whether this path could be for you. Sisters, whatever you decide, please hear this. Your worth was never tied to your bank account, and God has not forgotten you in this season. This is simply one door among the ones He may be opening for you, worth a look.
And if part of you is thinking, I'm too old to learn something new, I want to remind you of what we talk about often here: neuroplasticity. Your brain is capable of growing at any age, and challenging it with something new isn't just possible, it's part of what keeps you sharp and thriving for the years ahead. Don't count yourself out. Number two, church rejects celebrity culture. The institution does not need the leader to survive. So for the first one there, character over charisma, we often find that those leaders that are really flamboyant, those that have flowery words and those that have good stage presence and those who make you feel good, those sort of things are the ones that people tend to gravitate towards. Some people, yeah, are just born speakers and are able to keep people engaged. And sometimes that charisma overrides what is actually the character behind that person or in within that person. And maybe it's not looked at as closely because of that, just that flamboyant nature of the person who's the leader.
That is out of all the
Yeah.
recent exposures over the last few years is that's one of the big things is that clearly people are being held up not based on godly character, but just because they're gifted at this or they're gifted at that. And everybody
Mhm.
likes them. And it relates to two about the celebrity culture.
Yeah, and I think in our society right now, with all of the technology, that we like flashy things, we like things that are quick, we like things that are engaging, and our attention span really is not very well developed. And so we have to do more and more to seemingly gain attention. And so people who just happen to have a gifting in that way are often listened to more, maybe a little bit. So the other thing he brought up with number two, church rejects celebrity culture, is the church can go on despite the removal, or say that leader goes on to do other things just naturally. And it doesn't need that leader itself to survive, so that there's enough other structure in place that it's situated on good foundations, that just because somebody comes and goes, that doesn't mean that the whole church would fold without that leadership. And number three is real accountability structures where a board can actually fire the pastor. Often churches have a functional but not real elder board. Many churches have the yes man kind of board where everything the leader does or wants is just sort of stamped and approved before really people are making good judgment or standing up to him or her and saying, no, we're going to hold you accountable. Number four is servant leadership. The church understands authority is servant leadership. And disagreements are not seen as disloyalty, just like the instance that you talked about. Yeah, where we don't have to be worried, if you shouldn't be worried to have to go to talk to your pastor about something that you feel is wrong. Number five, the fifth one is open to criticism. Any internal criticism should not be treated as disloyalty. Leadership investigates complaints without defensiveness or cover up. And so if you are within that organization, you should be allowed to encourage to go and say, hey, you know what? This person is or is not doing this or that. And you don't have to worry about that judgment there. The last one is protects the flock. And that's what good leadership in a church does. That's their job. If the church fails at protecting the flock, it fails at its most basic function. And I think that that's valid. The church is there and it is the people. That's really most important. And we are to protect our most vulnerable. We are to protect those who don't have a voice for themselves. It's really important in leadership for the flock to feel safe and loved.
5 and 6, open to criticism and protects the flock, are the ones that stand out for the story I shared about that pastor with the marriage ministry, and that I could not come and tell him, even in private, a very serious concern about the message he was sending out. And it was unsafe, and he was not protecting the flock.
Hmm.
So basically, he's failing at the basic function,
Hmm.
as
Yeah.
Josh shared, is that it was and is an unsafe church. I did read the Bully Pulpit book and I recommend it. I thought it was really good.
Mm.
As I said, the story I shared about the pastor with the marriage ministry, he clearly failed at the last two culture characteristics.
Right.
Remember the Darbo letter I mentioned? The two separate lists, they're supposed to work together.
Hmm.
You must have policy and character and structure and culture to be a safe church. So the question is, how do you find a church? Well, Josh suggests we think of finding a church like finding a spouse. Think of finding a church like committing to a long-term relationship. So consider the levels of commitment. You start out, you go on a few dates,
Yep.
and hey, if that works out and things seem good, then hey, you go steady. And if that works out, things are going good, then you get engaged. One of the things that Josh said was that his warning was in just thinking of these levels of commitment to think about that when you're going to church. So when you first go to a church, in 2 weeks, you don't start serving on some committee or at the nursery or any of those things, right? You don't
Yep.
volunteer. You don't get involved and do all these things because you don't really know this church yet. Something else. The church doesn't really know you. I've seen churches do this where somebody just started to go to church there. Somebody just started attending and they've got them leading the youth ministry and serving in the nursery. And they
True.
don't even know if that person actually is a Christian. They don't have any idea. They have never really observed this person. They just started coming to church there. So it's both sides. There's a certain amount of commitment. You need to take your time and check it out. Don't commit and don't feel if they pressure you to start doing things. You go to a church like we need Sunday school workers and you feel the
Right.
pressure,
Yeah.
that's probably not a place to go. If they would just take anybody.
Yeah. You walk in with a casserole and all of a sudden you're in charge of the nursery or food for the rest of the month or
Yeah.
something. That's right. Right. Well, take your time. Interview the pastors and elders. That's another way to do this. How have they handled discipline? How is the pastor accountable to the congregants and to the Lord? Like what sort of structures are in place? Can you bring concerns? Ask the congregation questions too. You can ask other people while you're there. You don't have to be, it doesn't have to be all done in one day. It doesn't have to be, obviously, you can pick your targets. You can take your time. I would suggest just keeping a journal of the conversations that you have and maybe comparing different dates, but doing a really good study of whether or not you want to become part of that congregation. Because it is an obligation. It's not just an obligation on their part, but on yours as well, where your giftings are and how you'll serve and it's an opportunity for growth as well. And so if you're going to spend this long-term relationship with this church, then you need to be sure that it's a good fit for you and that you are comfortable and safe.
I think you need to be now these are the questions that Josh Lewis suggested. How do they handle discipline, things like that. But you need to be prepared that I would say most churches, if you went to the elders and started asking those questions or asking, is the pastor accountable? You're going to be marked as a troublemaker at the beginning. At most churches, they're going to like, who's this person coming in and
That's
asking,
right.
like, how do they do discipline? And, how's the pastor accountable?
Yeah.
They're going to not want you. Just be prepared for that. And if that's the case,
Yeah.
then you probably don't want to go to that church. But unfortunately, I think that's probably most churches. But sisters, I just really want to encourage, do it anyway,
Mm.
because we've got to try to normalize this
Hmm.
because it should be that you can ask those questions and they should answer them. It shouldn't be this thing where the leadership is way up here and
Mhm.
the rest of the sheep are just down there like know nothings to be treated any way that they see fit.
Mm.
That's not how it is. They are serving the sheep. But again, be prepared. I don't know what the response will be a lot of the time.
Well, I can also say, as somebody in leadership, arrive with a countenance and a mannerism that is also not too forthwith right away. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
get them in
you
the
don't want to
end.
be accusatory.
You don't want to be, yeah, that's right. I mean, come with a little bit of humbleness of heart because it can be difficult. But I think you're right. That doesn't matter in that you need those answers. You need to know that there's some structure, that people have thought things through, and there is an accountability for sure. So, Josh says your pain is valid and your caution is wise. For those of you who have done some suffering and who really are feeling disillusioned at this time. But again, we want to caution you that you don't keep away from church and that you keep at it, and that, sisters, that you still look for community there. But again, take your time and ask questions and move slowly. And if they're not the right fit, move on. And remember, there are wonderful pastors and elders out there who are really doing the best they can for their churches. And we want to honor and support those who work in that service and thank them for just the way that they do serve and for the sacrifices that they make. We also encourage you to watch or listen to this Remnant Radio episode. A link will be in the show notes below, especially if you're looking for a church or in the process of healing from spiritual abuse or disillusionment. We encourage all of our sisters to examine why they are attending their own churches. Hey, is it out of habit or convenience? Is it just because your own friend group is there? Are you supporting the leaders while they are harming congregants? Are you really listening and looking and being discerning about what is going on in your church? Or are you just kind of turning an eye and not saying anything? Are you following blindly those charismatic leaders or movements just because they're fun and exciting and engaging? And what are the bones of that? So let's support healthy churches with cultures of character and biblical support structures, because those are the ones, girls, we want to see thrive and survive. Be blessed by Him who is able to protect you from stumbling and to make you stand in the presence of His glory, blameless and with great joy. Until next time.
Hey, sister, before you go, thank you for being here with us. If you were encouraged by today's episode, would you take a moment to follow or subscribe to the podcast? That way, every new episode finds you right where you are. And if you feel led, leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts helps more women just like you discover this sisterhood. We would love for you to come join us in our free private Facebook group, the Jesus People Sisterhood Community, and keep the connection going.
And we also have a Jesus People Sisterhood senior housing group if you're exploring co-living and new possibilities for this season. You can connect with us at Jesus People Sisterhood on Facebook or visit us individually for Janine at riseupcoachingandconsulting.com and for Ellie at christianlongevity.com. And just a quick reminder, this podcast is for informational purposes and not professional advice. Our prayer is that this podcast blesses you. Until next time, stay connected, reach out, and welcome another sister in.